So, Mr. Isaacson, my first question here is, what are your feelings about the Affordable Care Act, and how would you approve or change it if you were elected?
In general, I like the Affordable Care Act. It's ending up getting more people insured, so their medical needs aren't riding on everybody else, which is what was happening. What I dislike about it is that it's too expensive. It shouldn't have been that expensive. It wasn't planned to be that expensive. Some things have been suspended, at least temporarily, but I also think it's created a captive audience for the insurance companies. I can see benefits of the single-payer system. All the trade-offs would have to be done, and certainly I'm not looking for death, whatever they call it, death penalty. But nonetheless, because of captive audience, insurance companies, I think, are charging more. You still can't go interstate and buy your insurance over there, so Cigna sells all over the nation. You can't go buy another state's rates. And I've never figured out why you can't buy medicine from wherever you want, as opposed to keep it in the country. All those things would lower the cost of it, and certainly keeping track of the cost of the insurance itself. That would bring the cost down. We could do things like to lower it. But things like pre-existing conditions, that's been a great doing that. Your pre-existing conditions are now covered. I actually ran into insurance once who denied me for 2 years on pre-existing conditions, and I really didn't even know I was ill. But in general, I'm for the Affordable Care Act, but we do need to make it affordable. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm actually an insurance agent after the Affordable Care Act passed. My partner in DC and I, who had been the Secretary of Health in New Mexico, and I set up a website to give people help in all 50 states and the District of Columbia on the Affordable Care Act. And I did my part by actually taking the California exam and becoming an insurance agent. So, then I went out and worked in the farmers markets, signed a lot of people up. It's been very rewarding. Still get calls of people who are having trouble getting their insurance or have been disqualified for one reason or another, and having to try and get them back on insurance. But the legal the legislative practicalities of the Affordable Care Act was that it was passed without a single Republican vote. So in order to get it passed, you had to make deals right and left, primarily with the insurance companies and with the drug companies. So I always thought of it as a good starting point. And because of the gridlock, there hasn't been much done on it. You hear a lot of all the Republican candidates saying, well, first thing we're going to do is repeal Obamacare. Okay. Then what are you going to replace it with? And then start cherry picking certain things in the act that they would keep, like the pre-existing conditions and giving the benefits to your children up to the age of 26. Well, you can't just keep one part of it and not keep the other part of it, because it's all in balance. If you do want to change it and improve it, you have to do it in a way that works with the whole act.
When the President of the United States came on public TV and told us that if you like what you have, you can keep it, but that wasn't the case. Obviously, there was something wrong with it. Affordable health care offers everything and anything to everyone, but providers who are unavailable to serve those needs. That's another problem. If you want to have affordable health care, remove some of the regulations from insurance companies so they can readily do business in California. Allow us to reach out of state and see who has the best deal for us. Every time you turn the TV on, you see car insurance companies comparing prices. You never see healthcare insurance companies doing that. Bring competition to the table and let us make that decision as to what's best for us. Also allow us, as a small business person as I am, to buy insurance prior to my tax line. That will help any target businesses to do so. I'm limited now to buy another business because my number of employees will go over 50, won't allow, it will become a very expensive operation. This healthcare tied my hands down for something I really enjoy to do for my business. I went from 1 location to 3 locations, from 6 employees to 30 employees. I want to be able to grow in the market that I'm in because of what ties my hands, what makes it more expensive to operate. So that's where I stand on this issue.
The Affordable Care Act has done some really extraordinary things in our country. Millions of people now have insurance. We no longer can exclude people from having pre-existing illnesses. Younger people can stay on their parents' insurance up to 25. A lot of good things came about as a result of the health insurance that we now know as affordable as the Obamacare. But it's not perfect. It needs tweaking and it needs some enhancements. For instance, both Republicans and Democrats agree that the Cadillac tax needs to go away. It's been extended till 2020, but that's something that needs to be addressed immediately. Secondly, we need to make sure that we are allowing Medicare to do what the Veterans Administration does, and that's to leverage its purchasing power of pharmaceutical medicines and pass those savings on to consumers, Medicare recipients. We need to make sure that we're expanding providers. One of the challenges we had with the Affordable Care Act is that while we were able to increase people having insurance, we still have the need to increase providers. And lastly, when you consider rural areas like San Luis Obispo County, we don't have enough providers in those areas. And we don't have better reimbursement rates so that we could have more providers. So we need to make sure that we're raising the reimbursement rates for physicians in those areas. But those are the types of things we need to do. And I think the Affordable Care Act is doing a lot of good, but there's enough room for growth, there's enough room for changes. And I think we could do a lot of those in a bipartisan fashion.
So ideally, and for a long time, I've been a fan of universal health care, but there's ideal and there's reality. And I think the Affordable Care Act did approve and move forward a lot of the issues that were of concern to many of us throughout the United States. Expanded coverage for young adults and allowing them to stay on their parents' health care to an older age. Expanding the ability to move from plan to plan and have your not have pre-existing conditions. Pregnancy doesn't become a pre-existing condition, for example. But it's certainly not perfect. And I think, honestly, the root behind the part that's not perfect, which is still having to do with insurance companies that can raise their rates depending on what their experience among their pool is, and pharmaceutical companies that can just charge inordinate amount of money just for needed medication, is because of those lobbies and the way money in Washington is poisoning the well amongst the lobbyists, between the lobbyists and the lawmakers. That is the core issue that we have to get a hold of in order to create any kind of expansion to care and lowering costs. And so that is really something that needs tackling. So it's not just about healthcare and expanding the quality of care, expanding access to physicians. Those are all things we want to do. But in order to do that, we have to deal with money in politics in Washington, D.C. So that is something that we have to get to the core of the issue. And then finally, just looking at how can we work together state by state and allowing state agencies, for example, our insurance commissioner here in the state of California does not have the authority that other states do in terms of vetoing when an insurance company wants to raise their rates prohibit too high. and so we should, as a member of Congress, to work with your state agencies and to work with leaders in the state to try to enable that law to get passed is really important. I think will help each and every person here in California and expand that type of philosophy and that policy throughout the country.
When I talk about legislation that is written behind closed doors in secret and literally is forced through the legislative process without any sort of congressional participation between either side. This legislation was one of the largest bills ever passed through Congress without bipartisan support. And I think this was part of the process that was really wrong with it. It was written in the Senate when there was a supermajority and passed over to the House side in rough draft form. You had a senator pass away while he was in service, losing the supermajority. And this is when you heard the leader of the House say, let's pass this to find out what's in it. This is a problem in Congress. If you're not doing your job and doing your due diligence, ensuring that the policies that you're making and that you're passing into law are actually as fine-tuned and as good as they are for the American people. What we have today is a lot of empty promises that were broken. You have an increased cost in premiums. People are not able to get the insurance they want. So what we need to do is allow people to access and purchase insurance across state lines to create competition, to drive down costs, and provide more options for all of us to find the health insurance that we want that best fits what we need and provides us the access to the health care that is perfect for us as an individual. I think we can allow small businesses to pool their resources, which would provide more options for individuals. But what we have is what I would call the largest federal legislative boondoggle in American history because of the process and because of the politics that we see in Congress today. We need to get Congress working again. We need to have more voter participation in this regard. And that's something I will fight to do, is to get it working again for the American people. Thank you.
Things like that drive me insane. And let me tell you why. When Obama came into office in 2009, he wanted to pass a health care bill. There was so much resistance, and if any of you saw the secret recording, you saw the secret recording of Mitch McConnell saying, we're going to do whatever we can to stop him, we're going to vote no on every piece of legislation. So while the Republicans are up here telling you that if they feel it's unfair, they have been cheated, they haven't taken part in it. No, they've walked away from it. And 27 million Americans do not have health insurance today because the Republican governors have said, no, we're not going to allow federal dollars to come into our states and help people in need to have health insurance. That's nonsense. Don't give me that stuff. The healthcare system we have today is a Republican model. It was based on the Heritage Foundation's design for the state of Massachusetts. That's where it came from. And money in politics has putrefied this whole thing. And let me talk to you just about that for a second, about your social contract and why I'm connecting those two. How many of you are of age where you could go to war today? Guess what? Your social contract says that you can go to war, you have to go to war if I tell you to, or if we decide that you have to. And you might lose your life, or be crippled, or not be able to have children anymore in your life, like many of these Iraq vets. Now, if I can send you to your death, don't I have some obligation for your welfare? That, at the bottom of this, is our social contract. Is it our right to have health care, or is it our privilege? And the matter of the fact is, our doctors take the Hippocratic oath to say they will take care of people who are sick. What's wrong with the rest of us that we can't have that? Sure, the Affordable Care Act needs improvement. But damn it, they'll get these Republicans to get involved in this, and let's make it better. Because what we really should have is what almost every other major industrial country in the world has today, which is universal health care. Right? Single payer health care. Single payer health care.
For our next question, are you in favor of overturning the 2010 Supreme Court decision, Citizens United versus the Federal Elections Commission? You can start with you.
Oh, I love this question. Has there been any more egregious decision by our United States Supreme Court than the Citizens United decision? Probably you'd have to reach all the way back to the Dred Scott decision before you find something that has been more deleterious to our welfare as human beings in the United States today. Money in politics is the single biggest scourge that we have. And although I won't do it now, I will give you reports on every one of these individuals that are up here tonight and their factor of money in politics. One of the gentlemen up here has got 87.5% of his entire donations from out of the district, and over $300,000 from out of the state. Now, how is that benefiting us? That means somebody else has an agenda. Now, what I've done, and I'm the only candidate up here who has signed the People's Pledge and the Democracy Pledge. What is that? That's the pledge that says I will not take corporate money. I will not take super PAC money. I'm the only person up here, except for Mr. Oceans and Mr. Isaacson, as far as I know, who has not received any PAC money, who does not take super PAC money. That's important, folks, because that tells you who they are obliged to. Moreover, I am the only candidate up here who has written legislation. This is an article in the New Times paper of San Luis Obispo, who has introduced legislation to the city of San Luis Obispo for publicly funded elections. Publicly funded elections is not going to remove the entire part of money in politics, but what it does is dilute the influence. It completely dilutes the influence. Less than 1/4% of Americans give over $200 to a campaign. Mr. Carbajal, for example, his average contribution is $1,300 between the period of April 1st and September 30th. Now, if I want to get small donations from the city of San Luis Obispo, which are like $50 donations, I've got to get about 26 of those people, where somebody else from a wealthy neighborhood can get $1,300. And I'm not trying to take issue with Mr. Carbajal, he's a nice man. But the reality is that's how money skews politics. Out of 1,799 legislative outcomes, majoritarian democracies have little to no effect.
Would you like to rebuttal?
Sure. You know, I am 100% against Citizens United. Day one when I'm elected, I will work to do everything I can to bring campaign finance reform. But the fact of the matter is we have the rules we have. And I'm very proud of the broad support. 80% of all the support comes from my district, from the 24th Congressional District. Let me tell you, I'm very proud of the grassroots support that I have. And I've always been in favor of campaign finance reform, but the rules are the rules, and we need to do everything we can to keep this seat blue.
Yes.
I think there's no question that money in politics is a serious issue. It seems to benefit political insiders and people who've been in politics and made a career out of politics. It allows them to leverage the relationships and the inside track to win elections. I think there's a lot of things that we can do to modernize this system so that there's better voter engagement in the process. We see that it's the political insiders that benefit most from the partisan politics, really frankly making people disgusted with the process to the point where they don't want to engage anymore. That's what allows the insiders to thrive, and money plays a big part in this. But with technology today, I'm out of time? All right. We'll wrap back to that later. How much time do I have left? Okay. I get excited about bringing technology into our system to have 21st century policies and modernizing our republic and having that engagement between citizens and their leaders, their civic leaders, or the people who are elected to serve them. You know, with an app on your phone that streamlines the social media of a candidate or a representative to potentially tracking whatever vote, the background on that vote, that allows you to better assess what it is that they're voting on so that you're not just hearing empty rhetoric, that you can hold them accountable to what it is that you elected them to do. I think there's a lot of things that can move money out of politics and create that engagement so that they don't have to spend a majority of the time, rather than showing up to hearings to raise money, to actually work and engage with you and you with them. And I think that's something that we need to do moving forward.
So yes, I have been outspoken and continue to be against Citizens United. We have to recognize this is a constitutional amendment. It can't just happen just like that. And so there's a process involved. And in the meantime, we have to do what we can to bring a spotlight onto campaign finance reform in any other way that we can. You need transparency. You need to have frequent reporting. You know, the Senate right now, you still can't get know, it's insane, actually, that I've had to raise as much money as I have to get the vote out, and it's still not considered enough by the establishment in Washington, D.C. to say that I'm a credible candidate. To have to raise over $500,000 and then some just to become a credible candidate from those to say you can be someone that we would even consider you winning doesn't make any sense. What matters to me is what the voters of the 24th Congressional District care about and what their issues are. And frankly, if they can, and I'm thankful for those who have given a donation to the campaign to help get that message out. That's really important. My average donation is $500. That's a lot of money for people, and that is something that you have to get a lot of broad-based support in order to get the funding that you need. It shouldn't have to be that way. You shouldn't have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on campaign ads that's talking about sound bites as opposed to doing what we can to have debates like this throughout the district frequently and not to squash those debates because we don't have the time. This is what the campaign is about. This campaign is about the issues, talking about the issues, not about sound bites, and we got to do what we can on the federal level on down to make sure we can have access so people can really figure out who they want to represent them in Congress.
I've always been for campaign finance reform. I continue to be for campaign finance reform. Citizens United is one of the biggest travesties that has happened to our country. The Supreme Court, I think, erred in that issue. I'm very proud of the broad support. As candidates, we traverse the entire district. We engage citizens from all walks of life, from the grassroots, from everywhere. And I'm very proud that many people have stepped up to support my campaign. I think there's a lot more that can be done. The issue, Citizens United, is an overarching big issue. But it's not to say that we can't explore opportunities in Congress to bring about campaign finance reform. And that's the type of thing that I want to do when I'm your congressman, to make sure that we are doing everything possible, including promoting a constitutional amendment if the Supreme Court does not overturn this, with the likelihood that there's going to be a new Supreme Court in the near future. You know, it's easy to talk about the support we've been able to achieve or not, but I'm very proud of meeting with so many people throughout the district and garnering such broad support that is evident in every which way for my campaign. I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud to have UCSB, campus Democrats. I'm very proud to have the California Democratic Party endorsement, the delegates, the grassroots, 83% of the vote. I'm very proud of that grassroots support that I've been able to achieve.
I'm proud to say that among my contributors, those who want to invest in my campaign, there are some who have paid $5. That's more than they can afford. Transparency is the issue. And if you look at my record, I've always supported it. Even recently, another bill that I support, a lot of folks talk about legislation. That's what I do day in, day out. That you need to be transparent where's your money coming from. Even if you get ID, independent expenditure, if you're advertising, it has to show on the TV screen, lower bottom on a larger scale than it used to be. Who are they? Now let me put something in a picture that take all this money out. It's been said here that someone will not take money from corporations. In reality, we cannot take money from corporates. That's the law in the federal campaign. But take all the money out. What do you think is benefit? As a businessman, I can afford to do my own advertising. But if I wasn't able to, that will be a disadvantage for me, right? The talk is one thing, and who benefits the most is another thing. So you'll benefit all these wealthy people to be able to run for office and be able to get their message across. And those who cannot do, and they're worthy of an office, you'll get a disadvantage. So when we want to talk fast, be also aware that you might be hurting somebody who is really capable, a quality person, who should be running. But because they cannot get their message through, because it costs money to get your message on TV, on radio, on paper, how else you want to communicate? Look at our district, 24 district. You have 2 counties plus portion yourself and Ventura County, how are you get your message across? How many debates can we have? How many forums we can go to get to know everybody? Thank you.
If you want to see money in politics, just watch what's going to happen here in this district, because I've heard different figures about the number of districts that are actually competitive in the United States, some between 8 and 14, and this is one of them. For various reasons, is mostly having to do with gerrymandering. Most of and incumbency. Most districts are not competitive. People get reelected at a very high rate if they're incumbents, and that it's either the gerrymandering means the districts are drawn up by the legislatures. The legislatures are controlled by the Republicans, and the districts are going to be drawn up in favor of Republicans. So there's very few districts that are competitive. This happens to be one of them. And so I think that one of the reasons that you've seen a lot of money, early money in this campaign, is just because there's an awareness that what's going to happen here in the next after the primaries is there's going to be a flood of interest coming in here. And you're going to get so bored, and all you newspaper people, independent, everybody, you're going to make so much money. There's people going to be advertising like you've never seen before. You know, the TV stations, bucks up. You know, so I think I'm the only one here who has a law school education. And Citizens United, the question about Citizens United is it was the First Amendment question. And what it said was is that money is speech, a form of speech. And that's one of the First Amendment is what it is, an amendment that is the one that, particularly political speech, is one of the amendments that is most enforced and litigated before the court. So
Well, direct answer to the question, no, I don't agree with Citizens United. I never figured out how they managed to get that. If they really want to be citizens, let the corporate tax be the state tax be there. But that ain't great that one. But political donations are not tax deductible. However, the way it happens, corporate level or individual level, they manage to get around that and give it into a tax deductible organization, and they eventually get it deducted from their taxes one way or another. It's not just Citizens United, it's the entire contribution system that needs to be reformed. Too much money gets through too many campaigns. Early on in this campaign, I heard a quote from one of the other gentlemen up here that there'd be about $15 million in this race. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes over that in November. That's a lot of money for this one office. And now, I'm going to take a little tax as a rebuttal. Mr. Ostrander, no, I have no corporate money, I have no tax supporting me. And as far as citing your the document, it said, might secure borders. However, the people who have been living here for years and years and have really contributed to the community here, who may still be hiding in the shadows though, one way or another, we should find a path for legality for them. We really should. They've contributed to our community. And if nothing else, if they're made legal, they have to pay taxes at that point. But I believe in securing things, but people need to find them paths to integrate them into the rest of society, and so we can all show respect for one another. Thanks very much.
That's just a real mess, that whole immigration thing. They try and do something about it, and then gang of eight and all that stuff you hear in the presidential election. And then when you're out on the campuses like I've been, and you talk and you meet someone who's here because of the DREAM Act, and you see what it means to them and the worries that they have that their family can be deported at any point, it's just inhumane not to do something about that. Then there's the economic aspects of it. There's work that the immigrant population does, in particular the Mexican population does, that particularly in the farms, that it needs to be done. And you can't, and so you need to have some kind of a guest worker program. It just needs to be addressed in a way that's comprehensive. And until there's this logjam broken up between the parties, and it's an issue of where people say we're going to send them all back, it's ridiculous. Build a wall, it's ridiculous. And you get one of the candidates who actually worked on some comprehensive immigration, and then he killed it for it. And we got the other candidate, so he has to back off and say, oh, I never meant to do that. I don't want to do that. It's just nonsense. And then, we're completely shocked in Europe. I saw a scene last night on TV where children would be tear gas at the border. And people are fleeing for their lives. Europe has no answer to it. It's just, I don't know. I can't tell them what to do. It just seems to me that it's a similar situation after World War II, where the United Nations set up UNRWA, which is the United Nations Refugee Relief Organization, and very people were taken and relocated around the world. I think we need to do something like that.
As an immigrant myself, the most valuable asset in my possession is my U.S. citizenship. Having said that, I don't believe in embassy because I believe that this is something you have to work and earn it to know the value of it. I believe in securing our borders, but all of our borders, by air, by sea, because of all the terrorism that's been happening recently. Those who are among us already, we need to be more careful about your security, our nation's security. I believe that there are many immigrants here who got here legally, but maybe they extended their stay. Some of them are here for an honest living. Some of them want to achieve the same American dream that I achieved, and I'm all willing to help them. Those who work hard, we had the CA24 program. I think that needs to come back. We need to make their stay legal in a way that it's a permit they can use for a good, put into good use. When they have that permit, they want to go back where they came from, take the money back home, help their families. But because coming back to the United States is much more difficult, they choose not to do that. And in that case, they also bring their families here because they don't want to be separated. So we got to find a way to unite the families in a legal way and show them the process and make it user-friendly for those who really want to be a U.S. citizen, go through the process. Otherwise, it is what it is. And if we say that we want to clean California, take all immigrants out of the state, our agriculture, our tourism industry will choke to death. That's the reality of it. But it's something, if we look the other way, it's not going to go away. It's a concern that we need to address it heads on early on before it gets more of a problem. So we need to get to work and see that people are here for an honest living to help them just do that and live the American dream. Those who are not, especially those criminal ones, we need to get out of freedom.
I too am an immigrant. I immigrated to this country when I was 5 years old. But guess what? Back then, the immigration system wasn't as broken as it is today. And the fact of the matter is that over the years, you have 11 to 12 million people who have come to this country who didn't have that opportunity because of our broken immigration system. It's a real travesty that Congress, in a bipartisan fashion, has not been able to achieve a solution to fix our broken immigration system. The Senate almost did. They actually promulgated Senate Bill 15 that actually brought about legislation in a bipartisan way that the House wasn't able to move forward. So in light of not having comprehensive immigration reform, I support the President's executive order for DACA and DAPA. I support the DREAM Act. And I also support comprehensive immigration reform to move forward once and for all. One that provides a path for citizenship. One that provides for stringent background checks to make sure that nobody who gets that benefit is a criminal. And we make sure that everybody pays taxes, and we also make sure that we secure our borders. But at the same time, we are doing everything possible to provide for fixing this broken immigration system and allowing people to come out of the shadows. People that almost every economist, every credible economist report has said that immigrants are a plus to the economy of this nation. It's about time we fix our immigration system.
The immigration system is in shambles, and it's actually absolutely pathetic that Congress has not acted on this. And actually, there's been executives in the White House from both parties who have said this is something that needs to be addressed and have said so for a long time. It's time to get this accomplished. And there are bipartisan paths forward. And I believe that that is something that absolutely must happen in the next couple of years because our nation's economy is in shambles in part because of it. I do agree that there needs to be a pathway to citizenship. I'm concerned about issues that send up a situation where families are separated and with mass deportations. I do believe in secure borders, but it has to be done in a way that is not extreme. The thing I think is also that's been very harmful to us throughout this country is the hateful rhetoric that we're hearing on a national level. And as a member of Congress, it is incumbent upon us to call that rhetoric out when we hear it and to say that it's unacceptable and to deal with the issues at hand and not to demonize people by virtue of for being here and how they got here. Because there are many people here who do contribute to our society and who are law-abiding, and they should have a way to get towards the pathway to citizenship. So I think while I agree that President Obama was in his executive right to make those executive orders, it shouldn't have happened. We should have a way to work with Congress and make this happen. We need to work with legislators in each of the districts that have borders and figure out where's our common ground, what are the things that we can work on and move things forward. And that's what I would do as your next representative.
This is a very significant issue that has festered for decades. There has not been a long-range solution that's been offered and that has actually passed through either chamber of the House and Senate. I think one of the main issues we have is the fact that they try to do all-encompassing omnibus bills to fix this thing. I think this is a prime example of where we could introduce a single subject rule so that every single piece of legislation that's voted on in Congress is only relative to that one topic. I hear from both Republicans and Democrats that we could agree that the first step is to secure the borders. And I think handling immigration reform and creating a legal immigration process that is merit-based and ebbs and flows with the economy is how we address this issue in the long term and have that bipartisan discussion and what best benefits our communities and the citizens within our communities moving forward. But that has to happen on a step-by-step basis, and it's necessary that we do this in the near future because this broken immigration system is working to the detriment of all of us.
Well, the simple fact of the matter is, that our immigration system is what it is because we ourselves haven't decided what we want to do with immigrants. Nearly everybody in this room is an immigrant at one point or another. And the fact of the matter is we hear this tremendous rhetoric on one side saying, oh, we got to build walls, we got to build borders, et cetera, et cetera. But the actual statistics are that there's 1 million less immigrants in this country than there were in 2010. And President Obama has deported more immigrants than any other president in history. Not only that, but Mr. Carbajal is right. The study he's talking about is actually from Harvard. And they showed that the net benefit to Americans is approximately 1% of your economic gain because immigrants are here to work for us or to work for themselves. I've been in the farming business for most of my life. I have yet to see a Caucasian out picking vegetables. I also find it sort of amazing that we never talk about the H-1B visa program. How many of you know about the H-1B visa program? I see a few people. The H-1B visa program is a government program that allows corporations to bring in head of household jobs because they say they cannot find local talent. UCLA just down the road has brought in 147 people in 2014, paying them an average of $66,000 a year as the head of household job. Now you students, these are jobs that you could have. But actually, because of our immigration policies and because we want to have it both ways, we haven't really decided. But once again, it's an issue for our social contract. Do we really believe the plaque in the Statue of Liberty that says, give us your sick, you're tired, you're poor, you're huddled masses? Do we believe that? Or not? It's unbelievable to me that there is such hostility to children that come into this country and we look at them as if they're criminals.
We are now going to go to closing statements, for which you'll have 1 minute and 30 seconds. Since we started with Mr. Isaacson for opening statements, we will start with Mr. Ostrander for closing statements.
So how long do we have?
1 minute and 30 seconds.
Okay. Thank you, first of all, for coming. I hope that this was helpful to all of you. Every time I do one of these things, it helps me. Because what I want to do is I want to find the essence of these questions, not talk about ideologies. And I think tonight we moved that along just a little bit better for ourselves. I want to take one issue with something that came up about money and financing and all that. We want to make sure that we keep this seat blue. You know, the unfortunate part of that is, and I get it, it's definitely a conundrum. But the reality is that's the short term. Recently, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the Democratic head of the party, allowed lobbyists to start contributing to the Democratic Party again. You know what happens when that happens? It makes us apathetic. We say, what's the point? What does my vote matter if we could simply bring more money into it and that money has the biggest effect? That's got to change. And I see a couple of Bernie signs up here. And one of the things that I'm most impressed about Bernie Sanders is he's defied all the political logic. Because you know what? He put his trust in us. And he's got 4 million people that have given him approximately $27 on average. That's impressive. And one of my favorite cabinet secretaries was Robert Reich. And he said in his blog just a couple of weeks ago, Hillary Clinton is the best presidential candidate we have for the government that we have. But the best candidate we have for the government we want to have is Bernie Sanders. And that crystallized it for me. And that's why I'm running, because I want a government that, I want the government to be like we all want it to be, not to keep with the same system. I
want to thank all of you for taking the time to come here this evening to listen to the debate and hear the different perspectives from the candidates, why they're running, what they intend to do should they have the opportunity to serve us in Washington, D.C. As I said, Congress, it's a broken institution. If we aim to solve the long-range problems that we face, regardless to whether you're Republican or Democrat, we need to reform Congress to get it working again for the American people. Over the course of the last several decades, it's literally been a partisan struggle back and forth on who controls the power and the influence in either chamber, in the House and Senate. What we need to do is reevaluate this from a systemic perspective and introduce legislation that improves it for the long run so that we can tackle the long-range issues that we face. Just had a great time traveling the Central Coast, meeting with different voters from all different backgrounds on on the grassroots level, listening to people's concerns. I keep hearing the same thing from people. They're frustrated with what's happening in politics, and they want a new generation of leadership to lead us into an improved direction for our country. And I look forward to potentially earning your vote and your support through the course of this campaign. Thank you.
I too want to thank you for taking the time to be here, and I hope this is the first of many debates in this part of the district. You deserve to have the chance to talk to and listen to the candidates on a variety of issues and not just deal with sound bites that you see in newspaper articles or on TV. My name is Helene Schneider. I'm the mayor of Santa Barbara, and I'm proud to be in an organization that has worked very well together to get things done in Washington, in Santa Barbara, and I want to work on that perspective to fight the gridlock to get that done in Washington, D.C. Working with other mayors, finding those best practices to focus on the common ground issues so we can move things forward in a way that makes sense for here on the Central Coast and on the national level. Before I was on the city council, I served at Planned Parenthood. I was their human resources director. And I believe I have the combination of experience both inside government and out in the private sector, working on issues of labor law and other things that pertains to people's day-to-day lives for an organization whose mission I think we very much hold dear in terms of access to healthcare and reproductive freedom. What got me started in politics started in college when I went to a women's studies class, and I found out it took 75 years for women to get the vote, and how important that vote is, and to use that vote wisely and not to take it for granted. To be an activist on issues related to social equity, for environmental protection, for marriage equality,